And right on cue, fireworks have started to go off where I am because it's 5th of November, which is Guy Fawkes night.
Nice.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. If you can hear us already, we're just waiting for confirmation that we are actually live on YouTube before we start. And it looks like we are live. Hi, everyone. Great to see you. Good evening. Oh, there's myself. Welcome to this live stream of WordPress 6.7, where we're going to look at the highlights of 6.7. And also afterwards, we're going to take some questions. And I'm joined now today by Rich Tabor and Nick Diego. And Rich is going to be taking us through some of the more user-facing stuff. And then Nick's going to dive into the more sort of developer stuff. They're going to be quite short and punchy, so about 15 to 20 minutes each. So we've got a chunk of time at the end for some questions. Before we crack on with Rich's demos and highlights, do you just want to, each of you, give us a quick intro to who you are and what you do? Rich, should we start with you?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Rich Tabor. I'm a core contributor to WordPress and a product manager at Automatic. I work on WordPress every day, and I try to make the experience just a little bit better every time I touch the code. I've been doing WordPress for 12, 13 years now, and started with themes, now all the way here with Gutenberg and full site editing, pushing to try to make this the best editing experience possible.
Great stuff. Nick?
Yeah, so I'm Nick Diego. I am also a contributor to WordPress full-time. My official role is developer advocate at Automatic. And what I do is I focus on educating the developers on new things that are coming in WordPress, writing content on the developer blog, and then also committing back to WordPress itself. I am on the 6.7 release squad this time around, and excited to show you all what's coming in WordPress.
Great stuff. Thanks, guys. A few other bits of housekeeping. If you have a question, actually, can you just give me a thumbs up as well? Just double check that you can actually hear what we're saying. I think you can, but I just want to double check. If you give me a thumbs up in the chat, that'd be great. If you have any questions, thank you very much. If you have any questions, if you could start your question with #Q, that'd be great. And I know there's been loads of drama around WordPress recently, but if we could, if possible, keep all the questions to WordPress 6.7, that would be fantastic. Okay, thank you, everyone. Let's crack on, though, with Rich, and I'm going to share your screen. And Rich is going to take us through some of the more end-user stuff. So I'll remove myself. Over to you, Rich.
Sweet. Yeah, so I'm going to start with the big hitter here, and that's with the default theme 2025. Now, every year, WordPress releases a new default theme. And the reason is we want to showcase everything that's been building up to this point. So over the last year, all the 3 different releases, all the work that's gone into this, and also how to build themes in like a little bit of a different fashion as we continue to evolve the WordPress product itself. Now, 2025 is very flexible. It's very design focused. It's tailor-made with plenty of patterns. I think there are 60 or so, a bunch of color palettes and typography presets, a lot of what you would need to start with a core WordPress experience that feels like you can actually accomplish like a nice website pretty quickly. So what you're seeing here is one of the default templates, and this is more of like an editorial or blog type design. Now, if I go into global styles here and open up browse styles, you can see that there are style variation options up here, color palettes, and also typography settings. Now, these are not necessarily new to WordPress 6.7, but for the theme, we can switch through these entire variations up here, which are changing anything from colors to typography to layout settings to spacing presets, font sizes. You can kind of manipulate anything you'd like to kind of create a vibe for this site. And if you like one of them, that's great. But say you like the colors from one and the typography from another, you can come down here and choose and mix and match each of these as you see fit to make something more interesting if you'd like, maybe like this one here. So you can change up the vibe like pretty quickly within 2025 and using some of the core foundations for style variations like colors and typography. That's pretty cool. You may have seen when I opened up Global Styles, the canvas zoomed out. Now, zoom out is something that's been a part of Global Styles for a couple of releases now, because it's nice to be able to see the whole page while you are changing the styles all at once. But something we really wanted to do for 6.7 was surface that zoom out tool to something that you can engage with periodically whenever you're editing your page. So up here at the top in the editor header, there's a new zoom out control. If you press that, your page will zoom out just like it did for global styles. And now you can select at the top level pattern selection level. So I can select this hero area here or any of the patterns underneath it at the individual level. Now, if you wanted to zoom back in, you could just double click. You can also engage with the tool up here to zoom in and out. Now, the key affordances here and the benefits for zoom out is that you can select patterns. You can move them around quite easily instead of having to try to find the parent group block that a pattern exists within. You can also delete them here. You can style them. So we have the style variations for each of the groups, section styles or pattern styles that you can apply here at the top level, which augment all the styles within this block. So you can kind of create a cool vibe here. Rearrange. And we also have the ability now to drag and drop patterns at the top level so that you don't end up in the situations where a pattern is accidentally dropped inside of another pattern. So if I go into, let's see, the features here, and I'll bring maybe this new arrivals one here. We have this new drop pattern piece that separates the content. Now you can drop it in, rearrange things as you see fit to kind of come up with something pretty nice and in a very quick fashion. Now, what makes this really helpful is when a theme supports, a wide number of patterns. So for agencies or for folks building for clients, if you have a library of sorts that you can leverage to build with, it really does help you create faster and also style faster from the zoomed out perspective. And then you zoom back in to start editing at the more granular level again, like selecting text and whatnot. Now in the future, I do imagine an add new page flow that lets you create new pages with zoom out engaged. So if you imagine, you hit add new page and it starts off with a blank page here, but you can select patterns. When you're done selecting patterns, you start editing the content of that page. That's probably in the next release as we continue to refine zoom out mode and give it more intentionality, especially around like shuffling patterns or changing design layouts. So you can shuffle between different patterns to kind of come up with a cool vibe quickly. So it's the first big push in this direction, but the advantages of having this like zoomed out bird's eye perspective for selecting and manipulating patterns on your WordPress site is really, really advantageous. So we're really excited about this. All right, so next up, I want to showcase the typography presets work. Now we've had typography presets where you can design an entire theme.json file just for typography. So if you want to do something interesting, you can do so here. But now we can also augment that even further with font size presets. So now a theme can provide any number of presets for any number of font sizes. But 2025 has these 5 here from small to extra, extra large. I know that Tell Your Story here is using the extra, extra large value. So if I want to manipulate this font size preset, it's using fluid typography, which is going to calculate the min and the max based on the viewport width. So if I want to make this bigger on desktop, but smaller on mobile, I'll switch to the mobile preview here. You can already tell it's smaller, but maybe I want to go a little bit smaller. And now as I switch between these two previews, this font size is automatically adjusting based on the values I put here. You could also create your own font size presets. So we have one here, just created. Now fluid typography will try to do the best it can if you just provide one integer value. So it'll try to find the appropriate min based on the viewport from here. But you can, like I said, go through and do your custom values within here. So it's quite flexible. It gives you a lot more tooling for the folks implementing sites within the editor here. So you don't have to go into the JSON file to try to create the theme.json for the font size presets. All right, and then another thing I wanted to show. So the query loop in WordPress is a really powerful block. It lets you render a post or pages or any other custom post type on your site fairly easily with the inspector controls and then the different display options down here on the right. But we know it's complex, right? The query loop is trying to take everything that was possible in WordPress fashion and put it into a user interface that makes it feel simple. So a lot of the work done to Query Loop for 6.7 is to really push on the user experience of this block. So you'll notice that things are a bit more streamlined here in the inserter. We have the post type between page or post, because those are only two post types available on my site. Now, if I had more post types, this would turn into a select, and I can kind of select the one that I would like to use. We also moved the display settings from kind of having two different areas for filters and display settings only into one area over here. So you can manipulate how many posts show up on the page. You can set an offset value. So if you want to skip one post, say if you had a big post up at the top of the page, and you can use these display settings here. We also have new filters. So if you have formats on your blog, you can filter by format. So a post format is basically a type of post that has like a standardized fashion. So an image post format would be just an image. So you can filter through your post formats that you've created. So if you wanted to show only image post formats or only quotes or only links even, you can kind of do that through this fashion here. So this is pretty interesting work going on into the filters. So Query Loop in general has been simplified quite a bit, but it maintains all of the complexity that you can move in towards if you want to make something much more complex. Like on this very first template I showed, where it's leveraging a couple Query Loop blocks within each of these, using offsets and using many of the pieces of work that we put into this over here, so that we can create these like much more highly engaging like news and type posts. All right, and then I want to show one further piece of work. So template parts have had the ability to be swapped out for other template parts for a while now, but 2025 includes a number of interesting headers and footers in particular to swap from. You notice like this is quite an expressive footer. I mean, that probably doesn't work for everyone's site. So 2025 includes a number of options here. So if you click through this design panel, you can swap through and use anything that's default from the list of items on the pages, from the title and the site logo as well. So you can go with something a bit more standard if you want, or try to go with a little bit more flair, like with this template part footer here. So those are like the key highlights, I would say, for WordPress 6.7 on the builder, the designer phase, like the folks that are implementing sites. And I'm excited to see what everyone will create with not just 2025, but using the foundation set in 6.7 for the next phase of WordPress site building.
Thank you so much, Rich. We've got a whole bunch of questions, but I think what we'll do is we'll take those after Nick's session, if that's all right, because he's only going to talk for 15 to 20 minutes. But keep the questions coming. Again, if you can put your hashtag Q at the start of any questions, it just means I can filter and find them all and actually ask them at the end. Also, if you could hit that like button, because we've got a whole bunch of people watching, if you can hit the like button, that'd be amazing. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitter, if you could repost it as well, that'd be great. Right. Thank you, Rich. I'm going to remove you from the scene. There he goes. All powerful. And I'm going to add Nick to the scene and remove me. And Nick, you're going to give us a sort of glimpse of some of the more developer-friendly stuff that's coming in 6.7, right?
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to talk about some developer stuff. And I want to be very clear that some of the things that I'm going to show you are custom. They are not in core, but they are enabled with core in 6.7. So we're starting off with 2025. So this is actually a different view than what you saw on Rich's screen, but it's the same theme, just using a different design. And I want to kind of quickly go over, there's some plugins installed on this site that are going to be important, because a lot of the features that are in 6.7 for developers are focused on extensibility, and developers. So I have two plugins. One is actually written by Rich. It's the dark mode toggle block, and we'll see how that works. And then I have another one called the Your People. It's a fun little block that registers a custom post type, which we're going to use. So I want to start with the simplest enhancement first, and this is one that I think is it's a simple addition in 6.7, but really allows quite a profound level of extensibility in the editor. So we're actually going to use this dark mode toggle block. So what this block does is it gives you this little toggle that you can put anywhere on your website, and I've just chosen to put it in the header. And when you click it, it gives you kind of a dark mode. There's a value that's stored in local storage, and so if you refresh the site, it will remain in dark mode. So a cool little functionality. It's packaged in a block. If you want to go try it out, it is available, I believe, on WordPress.org. So check it out. Great block by Rich. But what I wanted to do is experiment with some new functionality in 6.7 that allows you to add a button to this preview dropdown. So if you're inside of the editor, whether you're editing a post or a page, or you're in the site editor, you'll have this little option here that gives you this dropdown where you can toggle between tablet, mobile, desktop. Now you'll notice here that there is now let me zoom in a little bit, there is now a dark mode preview. This is custom. This was added using a new slot or API that's available in WordPress that allows you to add buttons to this menu. Now, this is the first iteration, so future versions of WordPress might allow you to do grouping, moving things around a little bit more, but this is a way that you can add a button for your plugin that can do interesting things. So maybe you have a newsletter view and you click on this and it shows you what your post would look like in a newsletter. In this case, I wanted to say, well, we already have this cool functionality on the front end where you can do light and dark mode. What if I want to be able to preview that inside of the editor? Well, this is a nice, convenient way that allows me to do that. So again, this is completely custom, but enabled with a new API in WordPress 6.7. So as a plugin developer, you can now add buttons to this preview dropdown that can do interesting things. In this case, we have a little preview for light mode and dark mode. And the cool thing about this is it works with zoom out, which Rich demoed previously. It works with the different, previews, that kind of stuff. So this is a very open-ended API that you can use. It really just allows you to add a button and a click handler, but it is something worth exploring and testing out, especially if you have a plugin that does some interesting functionality that might be able to use this. All right, now let's get a little bit more complicated, and we're going to talk about something that I'm probably one of the biggest features this year that came to WordPress, and that is the block bindings API. And then we're also going to talk about the plugin template registration API. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about those two in the context of a custom post type. So I'm going to back up here again. This is custom. I have a plugin called Your People, for lack of a better name, that basically registers a custom post type, which you can see here. And when we go into all people, you're going to see that I have 3 people that I have added. Now, if you think about 2025 and you look at some of the demo content out there, we're previewing all these images, and these images are by photographers. So I thought, well, why don't we use artists or photographers for our people? So in this case, I have basically created a custom post type for people, and I have 3 artists that have already been featured in the demo content. So we have Dorothea Lange, Boyd Norton, and Ansel Adams. Now, when I click on this custom post type, and we have an error, of course, live demos here, what you're going to see is, okay, all right, I have some error in my plugin, but this is just a normal post where, normal custom post type, and you have the normal things that you would see in 6.7. We have our content, on our person, we have our featured image, we have our excerpt, all the stuff that you would see normally. Now, if I come back out into WordPress and we go to the front end and we go to our artist template, you can see that I have this relatively unattractive archive of the people that I have added to this site, all the different people and their posts. Now, this is provided by the template that just comes with 2025. But if I'm a plugin developer and I'm distributing a plugin that has a custom post type, maybe I want to provide a better experience for those default templates that people might be using, that archive for people or the individual person. When I click in here, we just see, the normal template that comes with 2025. And this is where we get into the first API I want to talk about, and that is the plugin template registration API. And what this allows you to do is this allows you to register block templates in a plugin that then are used by the site. So I'm going to come over here to my plugin here, and I'm going to turn on this, and when we refresh now, you're going to see that I now have this new design. The only thing that I did, and we'll look at the code in a second, the only thing that I did is I enabled the templates that are registered in that plugin. And now you can see that we have a custom template for our person, in this case, our photographer. And if we go to the artist's archive template, you can see now we have a new design for that archive template. The important thing here is that these are being served by the plugin, not by the theme. And this is something that you really could not do before 6.7 without a lot of hacky engineering. This is now a stable API that anybody can use in any plugin, and it's super simple. So the way that we do this is all we need to do is we have this function called register block template. And here I am registering the single person template. And then here I'm registering this archive person template. And then for the content of that template, and this is for block themes, that is important, this is for block themes. In these template files, for example, for single person, I just have the block markup. This is the exact same block markup that if we were going to go into edit site here, and we click on our code editor, this is the block markup that you see here. So what I've done is I've created my template, I put it in my plugin, then I've used this register block template function to register that template, and now will automatically appear and overwrite that default template that's in the theme. It gets even cooler because if we back out here, you can see, zoom in a little bit, you can see that the templates that have been registered with the plugin show up in the site editor. So imagine you're a plugin developer and you distributed this Your People plugin, and you provide some default templates that come with your plugin, but you still want the user, the end user, to be able to edit those based on their own needs. Maybe they don't want that columns layout for the single person. So if you click under Your People here, you can see the templates that I have. And as a user of your plugin, I can come in here and I can edit them. Let's back out here. I think I went the wrong one here. There we go. And you can edit this template however you want. So for example, I could, move this down. We'll save. Go to artists, and now you can see that it's below. Obviously, it's not a great template, but just showing you that you can edit these templates that are provided by the plugin. And then if you ever want to reset the template, you can reset it, and it will go back to what is in the plugin. So this really seems very simple, but it really empowers plugin developers, especially those that are, their plugin includes custom post types. It allows you to provide some very interesting default templates for block themes, for your plugins and for your custom post types. And it really simplifies that setup process for the end user. Because if you were using a block theme before, either the theme would have to already support the template, or the user would have to install your plugin with a custom post type, then come in here and add a new template specifically for example, in this case, the people custom post, a person custom post type. So it really allows that streamlining for plugin developers. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and let me just double check that this is working now, because I think when I turn the templates back on, it will fix that bug we were seeing previously. No, it's not. Oh, it is. No, it's not. All right, let me double check my code here. All right. This is live demo, folks. So for anybody that's a developer and is watching this, they can laugh at me, and we're just gonna, I moved something right before this presentation, which I should not have moved. So we're gonna move it back, and then everything should work. So now when we refresh here, perfect. Okay, so we have our custom post type, a person. In this case, it's Dorothea Lang. She is a photographer. Now, one of the things that, one of the other APIs that I want to talk about is the block bindings API. This is an API, it does a lot of things, but one of the really cool things, and probably the banner statement that I want to get across, is it reduces the need to build custom blocks. If anybody knows me or follows me, I am the biggest proponent of building custom blocks, but only when you have to. And the block bindings API eliminates the need to create custom blocks for really simple things. So in the case of our person custom post type, this plugin registers a whole bunch of post meta. And we can take a peek at that. Take a peek at that here. So I have, sorry for the scrolling, we'll go to the top here. What I've done is I've registered some post meta, really simple stuff. For example, we're registering the job title. Again, this is a generic plugin for people, not necessarily in this special case about photographer. But imagine you're building something for a client and you might have a more specific plugin for photographers, and maybe you have some custom post meta specifically for them, like their favorite type of camera, when they were taking photos, whatever. You can think of all sorts of different custom post meta that you might want for a custom post type. We have all these different post meta registered here. A couple of important things to note. I have made sure that this post meta is available to the REST API. Other than that, it's very straightforward, simple things that you probably have done in the past if you've been working with custom post types and custom post meta in classic WordPress, block themes, whatever. This is pretty straightforward. But what the block bindings API does in WordPress, it was introduced in WordPress 6.5, but in 6.7, we had a massive upgrade to the block bindings API, is it allows you to bind this custom data to blocks. So in the past, you would have to write a custom block that pulls in your post meta. Block bindings allow you to bind it directly without touching any code, which is really cool. Now you might notice here that I have all these post metas showing up in the sidebar. This is custom, and this is what that error was showing that wasn't working. So what I've done here is I've just registered a sidebar panel that houses all my post meta. So one of the things that we like to stress in my role is try and get folks to move away from legacy meta boxes. If you're using MetaBox, that's perfectly fine. There's actually an enhancement coming in 6.7, which will make MetaBoxes a little bit more usable. But if you can, especially for things like this, if we're talking about the person's job title, professional designation, whatever, if you can move that to the sidebar, it's generally a better editing experience. And so that's what I've done here. I've moved some of this meta information to the sidebar in this person post type. So we have all this post meta. Now, I don't think Dorothy Lang actually has a email address, but we gave her one. So what we're going to do is we're going to see how we can take this data and bind it into a block without touching any code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to our archive template. We'll go back into edit the site. And we're going to go, so we're already here. Perfect. So remember, this archive template is coming from the plugin. Now, what if I wanted to, right below the artist name, I wanted to spit out their job title. In this case, they're all photographers, but let's just do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a paragraph here. Now you'll notice that there's this attributes panel for a certain number of blocks: paragraphs, buttons, headings. I'm missing one. I'll remember it as we go. But there are a certain number of core blocks that allow you to bind attributes or bind data to them. So I'm going to click this plus, and then it's going to give me this option to choose what I want to bind. And we're going to look at a button later, which will have more options. But in this case, the paragraph block is just the content. So click content. Now we'll come back over here and we'll click on content. And now you're going to see all this information that I can bind. Now you might be wondering, where is this coming from? Well, this is actually a query loop. Let's back out for a second. This is a query loop. And as Rich showed earlier, the query loop got some enhancements. So now we've chosen custom and we've chose the person post type. So now WordPress knows that this query is pulling from the person post type. More so, it knows that when I'm clicking here, I'm pulling from the Dorothea Lang person. So when I go back over to attributes and I go to content, this information here, you can see in the little, zoom in a little bit, this information here is actually pulling from her post meta. So what we're going to do is we're going to do job title. And you can see that all of a sudden, the job titles for each other artist in this case filters in. Let's just make this look a little bit better. Let's make it a little gray, have it small. Maybe we'll take these, put them in a stack, and there we go, that looks pretty good. Now again, prior to 6.5, you would have needed a custom block to do that. And now with just a few clicks, you can now do it, no code whatsoever. Now, the thing that's new in 6.7 is this nice little ability to bind the data directly. Now, this blew my mind when I saw it work, but let me take it a step further. I can come in here and click on this. I can delete this. Now, watch when I go to save. This is saving the post meta for Dorothea Lange. Let's save that. View on the front end, our artists. We have photographer, perfect. Let's go into Dorothea Lange. We'll edit this person. We'll talk about this template in a second. Edit this person. And then notice over here, her title has been updated from documentary photographer to just photographer. All without any code, all working together, all just editing inside of the site editor, which I find quite magical. So while this is a developer functionality in terms of being able to register post meta and bind data to the attributes of a block, it is also something that your users can use, because now they can do these manipulations and bind content to paragraph blocks and heading blocks without the need for you as a developer to build a custom block for them. It's already provided in core. And this is only going to get more powerful as we move forward in future WordPress releases. Now, the last thing I want to show you, just kind of taking this a step further, is to modify the single person template, which we saw briefly. So let's come over here. We'll go back to the site editor, and we're going to go over to that template for the single person. Click in here. Give it a second to load. Now, this is an example where you would probably use bindings pretty heavily. So this is the single art template for a person. And if you have a ton of post meta, you probably want to display that post meta in that single template. So what we're going to do here, let me look at the list view so you can see what we're working with. I'm going to focus on this column. So you can see that we have a featured image, and then I have a group. Inside of that group, I have a bunch of rows, and then I have some buttons. So if you remember, the post meta, I registered a website and an email address. So what we're going to do is button is one of the blocks that you can bind data to. So I'm going to click on attributes, and you can see that instead of just content now, I have a whole bunch of options. I have URL, text, link target, rel. All these things are which you can bind meta to, custom data. So in this case, I want to bind the URL. And for the URL, I want to bind the website. For the contact, I want to bind the URL again, and I want to bind the email address. Now, you could also bind, for example, the text, but in this case, I just want to have some default text, just website and contact. But you could do text, link target, anything you want. Now up here, we want to pull in that title, the location, and the employer. So let's just bind this. And you're going to see how quickly this happens. So we're going to do job title. Now, when you're in a generic template, it's just going to give you the name. Obviously, because we're not pulling in an individual here, it's just a generic template. So we'll do attributes, content. We'll do location. And then here we'll do, how about employer? So we'll do institution employer. Perfect. So now we can save our template. And then let's go over here. And let's go back to artists, and we'll go to, how about Ansel Adams? And now you can see that we have the title, the location, the employer. And if we go to website and contact, I don't know if AnselAdams.com is a real site, but we can try it. It is. Look at that. So now we are on Ansel Adams' website. Again, this is all bound from post meta that we can see when we go to edit the person. We can see all this post meta that has been added. So that was a pretty quick demo. I probably have gone over my time, but I wanted to show you how to tie all these things together, the block bindings, the ability to register templates from your plugins. All this stuff kind of combines together in a really kind of beautiful way to create some really powerful functionality in WordPress. And this is just the beginning. Future release is going to bring a lot more functionality to both the block bindings API and the plugin template registration API.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nick. And let's just add us all back in and change the scene. There we go. So we're going to take some questions now. So if you do have any questions, we've got a bunch of questions. Just remember, if you can do #Q, and also if you could hit the like button, that'd be fantastic, because we had a whole bunch of people watching and loads of people watching on Twitter. So it's our first ever live stream to Twitter. So that seems to have worked. Technology has worked. So thank you, everyone.
There you go.
Right, let's bring some questions up. So question. Maybe I've missed a bit out there, actually. Let's start with this one. Nick, this is especially for you. Harry Bonder. Question, can we expect Max Mega Menu with images and description with mobile responsive? Question, my second question. Oh, that's neat to put two questions in one. I like that. Second question, my second question would be the possibility of block priority alignment in mobile, columns, rows, etc. That's a good question. Who wants to take? Well, Nick, you've got to take the first one.
So I've communicated with Harry before.
Okay.
So Harry, good to see you. So I have an experimental plugin that Harry knows about for adding mega menus. The challenge is, I think, and I would love to hear Rich's thoughts on this, it's very challenging to build a mega menu that is works universally, across every single site, across every single design, every single layout. It's an incredibly challenging feat to do, as we've seen with the iterations with the navigation block itself. So I think that it is fully possible to build a mega menu, and hopefully my article and demo example plugin provides some guidance on how you could do that. But it would be something you build for a specific client, for specific theme framework, that type of thing, something universal. I'm dubious that it will be possible.
Okay, and the second question, Rich, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, the question about changing, I'm assuming like when you're on mobile, like switching the columns, like which column is on top.
Yeah.
I think that's just, it's something that you can do, of course, but you have to understand that it is problematic from an accessibility standpoint when you're reordering content separate from the document source order. So it's not something that will probably push into a WordPress core.
Okay. Great questions, though. Thank you, Harry. Okay, so this one I think was posted when you were actually demoing your stuff in the style editor, I'm guessing. So how do you know what colors are actually changing if you edit the colors?
So if you're changing, from a style variation perspective, if you go to browse styles and you're cycling through each of those, it's going to change any style or any color application applied in the style variation. So if you have 5 colors in one and 10 colors in the second, it will always activate those changes. So you'll always have 5 or you'll always have 10. So it's all or nothing on those fronts. When you're changing color palettes, it does the same thing, but only for colors specifically. So each color palette has its own definitions of colors, and the content will adapt to those color values. Now, when you're changing individual colors, like you can create your own colors within WordPress, your own custom colors, or you can augment any of the colors that are provided by the style variation, and those are one-off changes. So it's either one-off or you get the whole bundle of colors all at once.
Great stuff. Thank you. Right, Bjorn's got a great question. When will you be able to adjust row gap in the grid block rather than just the same gap value for both columns and rows? Rich,
I think that's a great question. Maybe next week. I think that's something that, grid block is, grid block is slowly evolving. It's getting somewhere, and I think that the grand vision for grid block is that it could become, the foundational layout experience across WordPress. So right now, it's still trying to find its footing, and we're really trying to iron out a lot of the the small bits like this, and even some of the bigger user experience mishaps with the block. So I think that it will continue evolving, but we can do something like that. That's pretty small. I think fairly quickly.
Great stuff. Right, Phil. Hi, Phil. Nice to see you. Follow you on Twitter, so it's good to see you here. Question: is there going to be the ability to select multiple styles for blocks? I think there's an Open Gutenberg issue for it. It's probably for Rich again.
Yeah, I would say I don't know for sure about like the style variations that are created for blocks. I think that there's a future for like typography only variations that are applied now at the theme level, and also color only at the theme level. Maybe we do the same for blocks where you can choose a different typography style or different color style, and they're basically combined. I don't know about full style variations that you can stack on top of each other, but there's definitely some explorations on GitHub that I'd be interested in diving in a little bit further on, and really seeing the use cases for exactly how you would push this further, and the reasoning behind it to see if it stretches across many folks.
Great stuff. Thank you. Right, Hans Good has one question of the night. I paid him to post this one. Unfortunately, the navigation block is still a major issue. Are there any developments in this respect? Rich, this is you again, I'm suspecting.
Yeah, navigation block is admittedly one of the tougher areas of the WordPress experience, and something that I'm thinking for the next release we really try to hone in on and figure out how do we make this, pull it back from the you can do everything right now. It's really complicated, but you can do a lot with it. But how do we make it to where it's the core of the WordPress experience of creating a navigational element for your website? And so some of that might be extending some functionality, some might be putting a bit more guardrails on to make sure that it's more difficult to get trapped in some of the loops that you can get in now with navigation. But I do think it needs a bit of rethinking and a bit of pushing on to get it in the right direction. And I'm hoping for 6.8 that we really get there.
Yeah, fantastic. I think we can all back that one. Right. Hi, Elliot Richmond, who's producing some amazing YouTube content at the moment around block themes. So go and subscribe to Elliot's channel. Question: is it possible to add fluid min-max on spacing between desktop and mobile?
So spacing presets cannot be editable just yet. The font size presets was kind of the initial work on that. I'm thinking the same experience could be used for spacing presets, and I don't see why it could be any different. It's something that we probably just need someone to pick up and own that effort for it, and I think that would be a great addition.
Good stuff. Right, Phil again. Sorry.
One quick note on that. You can do it in theme.json. Just in that case, that wasn't clear for anybody. You can do it in theme.json.
Okay, cool. Phil again. Another great question, probably paid for by Nick. When will Nick's icon block be added to core, please? Question mark. Nick.
So icons are used everywhere, right? So the biggest challenge with that is it's an SVG. And so SVG have inherently some security issues. So there's actually an issue, a track issue in WordPress that goes back many, many, many years about this. So that would need to be cleared before even any discussion further about implementing would take place. However, there have been some thoughts around how do you provide a way to there are some interesting explorations on how we could do icons. Everybody recognizes that we need icons. So I don't know when, I don't know if, but it is a known issue.
Yeah, but it's available as a free plugin. So there you go. Dejan, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name completely wrong, but it's a great question. Why doesn't the group block have a shadow option? Let's start with that one, Rich.
It does, I believe, as of WordPress 6.6, if not 6.7.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great teeing up question. Next one is, I like this new idea of putting multiple questions in one. That's terrific. Why doesn't the single column in the columns block have a radius option?
It does in WordPress 6.7. That's one of the small bits. Yeah.
Fantastic question. Okay, why doesn't the 2025 theme have a system font?
I think mostly design decision. The theme includes all its fonts locally, so there's no issue there. But just for a design decision, it doesn't include it as a system font, but you can add it through the font library.
Great stuff. And just to repeat myself, if you want to try it out, there is a link to a playground site with 2025 and WordPress 6.7 and sample content. Just one click and you can have a play and a look at it for real. Right. Next question. Lamp. I love how you can manage pages. This is another great question. I love how you can manage pages in the site editor now. How will this transition to the redesigned admin dashboard continue? A few people have asked me that today, actually.
Yeah, I would say that much of the work that behind the scenes and either also in like the data views work that's going into WordPress over the last couple of years even is to prep for this idea of admin redesign, right? And admin redesign is not about CSS or styles, really. It's about making the WordPress admin experience much more intuitive. So some of the work that we're seeing today in data views and also that's getting pushed into Gutenberg, even in the coming weeks that we've been working on, is also like gauge up for this view. And eventually I do see them kind of coming a bit closer together to where it feels like one admin experience and less like two separate things.
Great stuff. Okay, Elliot's come in with another question. Regarding template registration, I presume that if a tag category or archive template isn't provided, the fallback is to the regular template hierarchy. Nick's nodding.
Yep, absolutely. So the template registration API follows the same template hierarchy that WordPress does. So if your plugin doesn't provide one, it's just going to fall back to the theme.
Okay, this is sort of question that follows on, possibly. I haven't read this. I'm just going to read it out. Is it only possible to register a block template if the site is running a block theme? Can I provide my own JSON file to only apply it to templates from the plugin?
So the template registration API is designed for block themes. I don't know about the second question. Not in a straightforward way. So I'm going to hesitate. I'm going to hesitantly say no, but maybe there's some finagling you can do.
Okay, and then actually David's question probably follows on from that, I think. I'll show you both questions, otherwise it's not going to have any context. So there's a follow-up to this. How do you avoid conflicts with the theme? I assume when you specify header and footer, you do it in a generic way that will pick up the default header and footer in the theme. And then this is a follow-on, I think. In case I wasn't clear, how do you avoid conflict between templates provided by the plugin versus templates from the theme, themes with fancy layout sidebars rather than just header and footer?
Absolutely. So in the example I gave, I just using like a generic header specification, which will hopefully pull in the header from the theme. So this is not foolproof in any way, but you try to spec out your templates in a way that most block themes will adapt to. I do think that block theme standardization has gotten better over the years. So you can kind of expect that they're going to be built in a certain way. A lot of people basing their themes off of things like 2025 or 2024. So you would build your plugin templates kind of following those standards. And then if something didn't work, you could provide a theme could provide a template for your plugin that would then override it.
Cool. Okay, right. David's got another question, which is a good one, I think. If you bind metadata to a paragraph, can the user still add content before or after inserted data?
No, so it's going to bind the whole paragraph, all the content in the paragraph. So if you wanted to like do something like a prefix or suffix, you would need to use like a row block and add a paragraph with your prefix or suffix before that.
Great stuff. Okay, right. Philip's got one of the most common questions we get asked. I get asked about Gutenberg and WordPress. What's the status of mobile responsive design, Rich?
Oh, that's for me. No, just kidding. I think it's important to press on many of the intrinsic design principles that we've been developing, like taking the font size presets and making that a UI that you can manipulate, doing the same for spacing presets, and then trying to get this grid layout, the grid block, into something that you can actually build layouts on top of, and then really pushing on that front before we commit to adding like something more granular, like even media query type support into the core editing experience. I think it'd be interesting if folks start exploring a bit further in augmenting Gutenberg output or with plugins or whatnot to create responsive explorations. And I would love to see more of that and more pitching on that front to see what could potentially be something that everyone could benefit from. And that would be the direction to probably lean into.
Cool. Okay. Right. Just a few more questions. So with the new 2025 theme, if you want to edit the colors, how do you know it will edit the theme? Can you see that in the editor?
Yes, when you do change the colors, and they are reflected in the editor within the site preview as well. So it doesn't modify any of the theme files. It saves them as preferences for your particular site. As I think it's through the custom theme.json values. It is saved as yours, but it is not editing the actual theme, but they are your styles.
Cool. So right, just a couple more. Bridget, we've got. Is there a way or something being worked on to conditionally display a block in a template if post meta is set or not, like only showing the website button if the website post meta has a value? Nick's smiling, so I'm going to give that one to him.
So no. There's a plugin that I won't name that can do that for you. So I think that this is something where we would look further in terms of future iterations in WordPress to handle this sort of thing. Because I can definitely see if you have a post type that doesn't have the job title and the location and whatever, you might want to hide that entire post meta container. That is something you will need to look for an external plugin for at the moment.
Okay, and then we've got a. Oh, sorry.
There's also something you could probably put something together using block hooks, but it's a little bit finicky. But you could probably put something together.
Okay. Jake's got a question. Is there any hope for CSS masonry blocks?
Yes, when it's better supported, I would see that could be something we do.
I read there was a recommendation as part of the CSS spec that was coming, but maybe I dreamt I read that. So Elliot's got a question. If you can do fluid on spacing in theme.json, but can you do fluid spacing? Oh, did I already ask that question?
No. Maybe this is a clarification.
Okay.
I would say the fluid spacing is between mobile and desktop. It's the smallest value and the largest value. So it's just going to fluctuate between those two, depending on the viewport width.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Phil's got a question, which is, you think we'll ever be able to register additional content widths beyond wide and default?
Potentially, I think there's an issue in Gutenberg if you comment on the issue and put like the requirements of what we would like and also what you would use it for. I think that could be helpful.
Cool stuff. And just a few more. I do want to get through all these. We've got time. Site Studio says, could we not use CSS for icons and avoid SVGs altogether? This is a question for Nick. Maybe even have the option to upload it to the site editor like any other font.
Yeah, absolutely. My plugin, which was related to the question before, just uses SVGs. So there's definitely explorations that could happen, and I encourage people to explore and figure out what could possibly work for core.
Okay, and then got two more. Phil has asked. It's like a haiku. Register in theme JSON font waits when? Or it's actually Star Trek. It's more Yoda than haiku. I don't know. Can anyone answer that one?
I'm pretty sure you can, right? I think it's already possible. If not, it will be possible really soon. But I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay. And then the final question, which is from Tomsky. Will there be a lot of icon questions? Will there be an SVG icon option added in the near future to the Gutenberg editor?
No. Maybe, perhaps. I'm not sure.
Okay, we have actually got one more question, so I will pop this up. It's literally just coming. Janu Shan has said, is there any updates from hook functionalities?
Like block hooks or?
Yeah, maybe if you could clarify that one. We'll get an answer to you, or post it as a comment. Fantastic, thank you. Is there? That's a fantastic summary. Thank you both for that. That's been brilliant, and thank you everyone for such amazing questions. Rich, is there any other stuff coming into 6.7 that we haven't covered that would be worth mentioning before we head off into the darkness?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty here. Like what Nick and I covered it's just like the bigger chunks at the top, but there's a very long tail of work. I'm just off the top of my head, like auto sizes for lazy loading images. There's a new preference to disable the modal that pops up when you add a new page to pick a preset pattern.
Yeah.
There's WordPress components that are stabilized, new block type registration APIs, automatic conversion of HEIC images. And I think the HTML processor also supports like full HTML now. and all HTML tags. I mean, there's a long tail of work, and the hundreds of contributors that have put in work here has been really appreciated. And I'm just stoked to see where WordPress is going, and each release has been quite a significant jump, and I think we're just getting started in some senses.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, everyone. Just to repeat myself, if you could hit the like button, that'd be fantastic, because it does help spread the video around YouTube. And also, we are planning a ton of these types of live streams going forward. So if you want to see those, hit the subscribe button now. We're approaching 40,000 subscribers, so it'd be great to get there sooner rather than later. Finally, a huge thank you to Rich and Nick. That was great. Fantastic overviews. Thank you, guys. And that's it from us. Have a great night, everyone. And thank you for joining. Keep safe. We'll see you soon. Okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah.